Hey guys, Jerry here, the Poor Historian, bringing you another Poor Historian Sword Guide review thing. I was actually disappointed because I made a whole video trying to expand a little bit deeper into my thoughts and depth of knowledge for HEMA, and it didn't turn out right at all. So I guess I'm going back to ground zero and doing another Poor Historian review. So this one is called it's called a variety of names online. It's called the Crusader Sword, the Christian Sword, the Knights of Malta Sword. It's been regarded as a historical replica. It's been regarded as a like an homage to the siege of Malta. Very fascinating sword. Very weird how there's so many different types of nomenclature for it. I'm gonna call it the Christian sword because that's what it was called from the guide that I bought it on, the eBay post that I bought it on. Actually, I got it for $31. It was an auction. I think they go about $50 if you do buy it now, and a few other sites as well. But I got it for $31. Definitely qualifies for a Poor Historian sword, if you ask me. Oh, and the titles, they also sometimes will call it a bastard sword, and sometimes call it a hand and a half sword. Like I said, I've got big hands, but I can definitely grab both pretty easily with two hands. So it would qualify as a hand and a half or a bastard sword. So let's start with first impressions. First impressions, I pull it out of the bag, out of the box, pull the plastic off, and I look at the scabbard and I go, oh great, it's another one of those Pakistan scabbards where they just layer together leather that's more akin to cardboard than true leather and just strap a little sword belt to the back with rivets and call it good. And that's exactly what it is. What I actually like about it is that they didn't try anything special with it. They didn't try to make it fancier with little brown leather accents here and there. No, they just left it black. So props to you, even though the scabbard is horrible. So at least it's not too bad. Let me see if I can get a little close-up of it. It's stitched. I'm not going to say it's hand-stitched. And then you can see, hopefully, that it's leather lined up. It is hard leather, so the scabbard is not flimsy, but it's not wood on the inside, just more junky leather. And then there's the belt loop there. Apologize, I'm a little sick. But onto the sword itself. First impressions, I looked at the pommel and I went, oh wow, we'll get into that in a little bit. I looked at the grip and I went, it's kind of shiny. And then I looked at the crossguard and the pommel, and you can see they've got little indentations, little markings on the sword there, it's good, it's better than nothing. And then the blade has a fuller on it, and the blade is dull. So what the dull blade is always a good sign in my mind, because that means that at least this was in part meant for use in a demonstration or I suppose costuming historical aspect, because you do not have sharp swords at various events, reenactments, museums, etc. You always have them blunt, which is good. So, but then step 2 of my first impression, I pick it up and I pull it out and I go, what the heck? It is so poorly weighted that the weight is all up here in the weak of the blade. It's such a weird thing to hold. I'm not used to it. If you have a lot of weight, or if you have a lot of arm strength, I'm sure you could use this sword for at least some drills with HEMA. But it's just so, don't use it for combat just because it's not good. The weight is so wonky, and at the same time, I'm feeling the metal down here in the pommel and the guard, and it almost feels hollow or aluminum, some metal. It could very well be steel, but hollowed, or it could be another type of metal. I'm not sure, though the site that I bought it from claims that it's all steel, so I don't know how reliable that is. And then I grabbed the grip, and this is where it really starts to weird me out. You can see it has these bumps. So I looked into it. I was looking into why or how swords have those bumps. It's supposed to be so you can help grip it, and there would be little like leather cords wrapped, each one under there, before putting the final layer of leather on top of it to make those bumps. but I really couldn't seem to find more than just visual depictions of something that could possibly be a bumpy grip. What I did find in original surviving swords, a shape that looked like that but was actually caused by wire wrapping around the leather grip, causing these bumps. Now this is not one continuous wrap like it would be with leather. There's one loop and then one loop and then one loop and then one loop. So I suppose they didn't really look too much in depth with this. So when I in any case, when I gripped the grip, it feels just like pleather. You can always get a good guess from looking at it from two ways. You can see it's kind of shiny. I mean, there you can treat leather in a way where it would look like that. But then also, let's see if the camera can pick it up. But you can kind of see the when you look lengthwise at the leather, you can kind of see it's kind of black and then it has this white look to it. You can tell that it is a pleather by looking at that. So by the end of the video, I want to actually take this off. So we'll do that and I'll give you a closer look. But before I forget, I did want to point out one very good thing that I did see about this sword, and that is the pommel. I rarely have a sword in my collection that actually fits the 1500s era that I recreate with my reenacting group. They have the wrong type of pommel, the wrong type of crossguard, etc. So I looked online specifically for a sword with a pommel that is more 1500s, and it blew my mind when I got this one because it actually has what's known as the oakshot pommel typology type T, a plum type pommel. The fact that I am even talking about oakshot and the organization categorization of swords based on that style with a poor historian sword gets some pretty serious props to this sword, because you are able to delve a little bit more deeply into the world that is taxonomy or nomenclature for swords, even though this is such a cheap version of it. So let's see here. This one, as I say usually, poor historian swords, occasionally, and I suppose it's not uncommon to find a poor historian sword based on an actual original sword in a museum somewhere. Try as I might, I could not find a sword in this style. Given I did only look in the eras around the Siege of Malta, so I looked from about the late 1400s to the early 1500s trying to find this one. And I couldn't find it. In fact, simple crossguards like that, I couldn't find any originals beyond a few very big hand and a half swords that this does not qualify for. It was actually very common to have more than just a simple crossguard like that, and a complex hilt with various arms and flanges sticking off is more common for the 1500s. Not so much the late 1400s, but nonetheless, I still could not find one looking like that with the cross indentations and markings on the crossguard and the pommel. Oh, and one final thing too, before we go into the surgery of the sword. I think for the first time ever, it says Pakistan right here on the sword. It actually is hilarious because it's stamped on there backwards, like they wrote Pakistan on the metal normally and didn't realize it would pop up reverse when you stamped it on. I don't know why. This can come off. In fact, I'm sure I will take it off. I haven't done anything to this sword yet, but I don't like it when my swords say Pakistan right there on the blade. That's like flashing, whoop, whoop, low quality. I'm not going to be the one to hide the low quality of my sword, but I at least want to remove that from it. So, let's dive into a little bit of the sword surgery, shall we? Alright, so, as I said, I wanted to try to take off the grip of this sword to kind of show you, to show you how to identify pleather, and the other thing is to kind of see how they got this shape and see what they have underneath it. Because try as I might, this pommel does not unscrew, which is a very uncommon thing for poor historian swords. However, if you look at the bottom of it, it does not have the nut that we're all familiar with, so there is no way to unscrew this. So I'm curious. Let's figure out what we can. Be careful with this, because remember, guys, there is no going back. I could take this off and find out, whoops, I'm out of luck. I do have a bunch of leftover leather, so I am hoping to bring this to one of my 1500s reenactments, at least as a display piece. And I would like to get rid of this kind of gross-looking grip before trying to show it off. It does have a stitch up the side, which is what I am going to be cutting. And let us start. To be honest, I'm not really trying to keep this pleather. I'm not excited about having this. In fact, I might throw it away when I'm all finished, assuming that I don't need it for anything afterwards. It is difficult to cut. I'm cutting the thread, but it just is sticking too, so I'm wondering if there's some kind of adhesive. Oh, fascinating. Nope, no adhesive. Just, oh yeah, there is a bit of adhesive on there. Look at that. Just a little bit of glue to hold it in place. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised at this. This is wood. I would argue that it is softwood. It does feel a little bit looser. Kind of actually really cool. I kind of like how this looks. It looks like it was a piece of wood, a dowel of some kind, or possibly a square shape, put on a lathe, and then just it is one solid piece. And I am pleasantly surprised at this and how it looks. I may wrap some wire around here, but I think I might actually keep it like that just because it looks so pretty. Oh, and I'll probably put some finish on it and maybe wash off that adhesive. But I like this. I like this. So, I am pleasantly surprised at that. Haha, great. So, that's what I've got for you here to go over kind of the basics of the sword before you take a look at the grading afterwards. Positive on the pommel. I would say both a positive and a negative on the grip. Negative that they would actually include this. Forgot to point out pleather. See how it looks kind of leathery on the back? Well, if you look on the back, kind of looks like gauze. That is indication number one that this is pleather. That they just used that fabric and then painted over it with something to create that pleather look. This is trash. Get rid of that. But I do like the wood here. Positive on the pommel for oak shot. Positive on the handle for being wooden. Also for not being able to unscrew easily. Some people could see that as a negative. Because you're not able to go in there and see how it's constructed. I like it as a positive so that you don't constantly have to worry about twisting it and keeping it tight. Kind of neutral on the cross guards because it has that unique shape. It does have the stamping in it, but it's not complex enough for me to give it a second glance. The blade is a little bit of a negative. I like how it does at least have a fuller. However, it kind of contradicts the point of the fuller and not very good tapering by having just this heavy chunk of metal here at the end. I would prefer to see this taper a bit more, or at least have the fuller extend a bit to get rid of some of this weight at the end. I would say that this is fine for a reenactment, probably for the 14 and early 1500s era. Arguably the 1300s, though I'm not familiar if the Type T pommel is popular in the medieval ages. Probably good for some HEMA drills yourself. However, keep in mind that the grip does twist slightly if you put pressure on it. So you may want to consider gluing that in place or finding some other way to secure it before trying that. But it does have no blatant fantasy aspects and a few other benefits as well. The scabbard I'm also on the fence about because it is basic and simple. It is included. But there's nothing special about it, and they didn't go out of their way to make, for example, a wooden lining to make it very solid. And I would, if you look in there, even though the post said 100% leather, you can still see the little bit of that gauze in there. I'm quite sure that this is It's actually cardboard. In any case, I'm quite sure that this is, if not entirely, then at least partially fake leather, even though it says 100% leather scabbard. So that's what I've got for you. The Christian Crusader Knights of Malta hand and a half bastard sword. All right, see you guys next time.